Hello and welcome to Stop Dieting and Start Seeing Results. Really happy that you're here, and we're going to dive straight in because I've got so much to share with you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you, and we are going to start. So there we go. All right, welcome to Stop Dieting and Start Seeing Results. Really glad that you're here, and I don't take it lightly that you've committed to spending the next 60 minutes or so with me. You're here because you want the steps to fix stubborn fat, and if you're anything like me, you need to block out the distractions so that you can actually focus. So do what you've got to do. Put your phone on Do Not Disturb. Put your headphones on, hide in the bathroom if that's what you need to do. It's pretty difficult these days that we can really give anything our undivided attention, but you're here for a reason, and I want to make sure that you're able to focus and get the most out of this training. And on that note, I've got a special gift for you because everyone likes getting presents, right? Everything that I'm going to share with you today is equally important, and it's critical to you getting to your happier and healthier self, that you stay until the end of the web class so that you can get the full picture and the tips that I'm going to share. So basically, I'm going to bribe you. Close to the end of the web class, a link is going to appear below the video where you can get instant access to the 6 simple rules. And these are basically a framework that you can apply to everyday life, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, to ensure you get back into fat burning mode as soon as possible after eating. And this is a special bonus. I don't give this out to those in my programs. It's reserved solely for those who attend my web classes as a thank you. So here's my promise to you today. I'm going to show you the simplest way to get the body you want and deserve. And by the end of the webcast, you're going to know the 3 steps to supercharge your metabolism so that you can feel sexy and confident with and without your clothes. Does that sound good? And specifically, you're going to discover why what you've been doing for years to shift the belly fat and keep it off doesn't work. And instead, I'm going to walk you through what does. Imagine being able to skip over all the Googling, the trial and erroring, and just doing what works. I know that when I learned the steps that I'm going to share, it changed my life because it changed my clients' lives, and I know it can change yours too. So before we dive in further, I wonder if you can relate to any of this. Are you tired of losing 2 pounds after weeks and weeks of hard work and then gaining 4 pounds back after just one weekend of indulgence? Are you fed up with eating tiny portions and trying to ignore the cake in the office? Are you doing restrictive diets that cut out food groups and leave you feeling hungry? Are you sick of trying really hard and not seeing any progress at all? Are you unsure how to get the body you've always wanted so that you can feel amazing with and without your clothes on? And do you feel like a lost cause, like you're a failure, like you must be lazy because you just can't shift the weight? Can you relate to any of these? And if you're nodding your head and agreeing with these points, I promise I'm not a stalker watching you. I've just had so many ladies who have told me these things that I know what you're going through. And I promise you, whatever it is that you're doing that's not working, it's not your fault. It's really hard to know who's right and who to trust. And if you felt anything like my clients did before working with me, you would have done just about anything to get rid of the stubborn fat, except nothing seems to work, right? Because the real problem is that the traditional way of eating less and exercising more, it doesn't work in the long term. And when you continue to restrict calories over and over again, it makes the problem worse because your metabolism slows right down to compensate for the lack of fuel coming in. And then you get rebound weight gain. And the experience that most of my clients have is that diets like Slim World and Weight Watchers worked previously when they were in their 20s, but as they've got older and their hormones have changed, these diets don't work like they used to. And it's super frustrating, right? And it is frustrating. I totally get it. You're doing what the doctors and the diets told you to do, but all you've got is cravings and tiredness, hunger, and very slow progress. And it doesn't have to be like this. There is a much better way. So I want to give you an example of this. So Kelly had yo-yo up and down over the years, and she generally always found it easy to drop weight for holidays and special occasions. And since her late 30s, it's been gradually getting harder and harder to get the weight off. And she got to the point where she was eating smaller and smaller portions, but the progress was just so painfully slow. She was so frustrated and fed up. She found it difficult to keep going because of all the cravings, the hunger, bloating, and the restriction. It just wasn't worth the results that she was getting. So of course she gave up and she threw in the towel. And then she'd feel really guilty for giving up and like a complete failure. And she'd tell herself that she needed stronger willpower to stop self-sabotaging, that she just needed to try harder. Have you had those types of conversations with yourself? And I said to her, you couldn't possibly do any more than you already are. The problem hasn't been your lack of effort. Stop blaming yourself. You haven't failed. It's the diet that's failed you. She really didn't want to feel like that anymore. She wasn't happy, and her own disdain for her weight and her body was really starting to affect her quality of life. It wasn't the life that she wanted for herself. And if you can relate in any way to this example, then I'm sure it isn't the life that you envisioned for yourself either. And I can tell you that it is so rarely truly a problem with willpower. And that's why I'm so glad that you're watching this today, because what I'm about to share with you is the simplest way to wake up every day and actually look forward to choosing an outfit instead of dreading it. To stop relying on plus size clothes and being able to buy and wear anything that you'd want without worrying if it'd fit. To finally feel confident enough to demand that promotion because you no longer doubt if you're actually worthy and valuable. To be able to stop crash dieting before every holiday and to finally feel comfortable and sexy in your own skin. Just think for a second, which scenario is the one that you really want? Which one best describes why you showed up here today? And before we go any further, I should really introduce myself properly. So hi, I'm Louise. I'm a registered nutritional therapist, and I'm the founder of the Nourish Method to Lasting Fat Loss. I support frustrated dieters to balance their hormones and lose weight for good without giving up their favorite foods. I'm a big foodie myself. I love curry and chocolate, roast dinners, going out for dinner. And this is my dog, Millie. And there's a good chance you'll hear her at some point. She usually likes to have a little grumble while I'm working away. But I want to give you a little bit of backstory so that you can understand why what we're going to learn today is so important. So about 12 years ago, I started studying nutrition, and I had friends who struggled with their weight. And back when I was just an unqualified nutrition enthusiast, I watched all the documentaries, I read loads of books, and I really tried to help those that wanted the help. And essentially what I thought was that they needed to exercise more, to eat lots of salads, cut out fat, eat low calorie, drink lots of smoothies, and then the weight would just drop off them. And while they did lose weight, they never really stuck to it for more than a couple of weeks, and the weight went straight back on and more. And even after I finished my nutritional therapy degree, I had learned so much. However, I still couldn't get lasting results for a particular group. And I noticed that really women in their late 30s and older were the ones who were struggling the most, struggling with slow progress and busy lives, fatigue, cravings. And I felt really frustrated and hopeless. Why was it so hard? None of it made sense. And I remember one of them telling me how they just felt completely in despair with their body and how they hated the way that they looked, how they couldn't even look in the mirror. I just couldn't work out what was going wrong. And I didn't realize what all that dieting and restriction was doing to their blood sugar, the metabolism and their hormones. So So I was feeling deflated and like a complete failure. And in all honesty, I was ready for a career change. And I had to make a decision. I either had to go all in and dedicate all my time and my energy to specializing in weight loss for perimenopausal and menopausal women, or I give up. And as you probably gathered, I opted for the former. And I decided that I was going to figure out how to make lasting weight loss possible for these ladies. And it didn't matter how long it took me or what I had to do. I made a decision that I was going to figure out how to get my ladies their dream bodies without making them give up their favorite foods. And that's when I started the journey that got me to where I am today, here with you, sharing the methodology that I use with my clients so that they can skip over the years of trial and error and the struggle that so many women go through, so that they can just get body confident and thoroughly healthy without all that resistance, without all the guesswork. And that decision led to figuring out that what I'd been doing for almost all those years was almost completely wrong. And even though I am now able to get my clients their dream bodies without crazy diets, it took years to figure it all out. And I had to unlearn everything that I thought was the right thing to do, because I quickly discovered how wrong those things were. And I had to test out different approaches for different women, and I struggled. Now, I remember I had this one week where I had 3 different women telling me how they'd gained weight despite sticking to everything religiously. It took a lot of time and patience, and there was no way that I could have arrived at the Nourish methodology without having invested in my professional education and becoming an expert in female weight loss. But I was fully committed to figuring it out. And what I discovered through all the trial and error was that it wasn't that they all had weak willpower, or that they weren't strong enough to say no to the junk, or that they hadn't cut enough calories, or that they weren't doing enough exercise. I discovered that none of those things were normal or helpful. And I figured out that they all, in fact, had hormone imbalances, blood sugar imbalance, and inflammation. And they had all of this at a time when life can be pretty tough. Young children, elderly parents, full-time jobs, often career changes. And once I started to address the imbalances and adjusted the steps to each individual, everything changed for them. And I want to share how I did all of that with you so that you can skip over the trial and error too, because there is a simpler way to get your dream body without giving up your favorite foods. Do you want a simpler way of doing things? So before we dive into the 3 steps, I want to share a short case study with you, because it's important that you see examples of what real success looks like so that you can really ground yourself in the knowing that it's possible for you too. So Rebecca came to me because she'd been struggling to shift the weight despite exercising 3 times a week and eating lighter. She'd been working with a personal trainer who was pushing her pretty hard, so you can understand why she was feeling frustrated and fed up. Rebecca was perimenopausal, which means approaching menopause, and this is a time when weight loss gets pretty tough because hormones are telling your body to hold on to fat. Rebecca's key imbalances were hormones, inflammation, and blood sugars. So here's her blood sugar assessment. Her glucose and insulin were higher than optimal, and you're going to learn today why this is so important. Here's her thyroid hormones. So when you go to the doctors, they test your TSH only. Occasionally, if you're lucky, they'll test your T4. But if we look at Rebecca's TSH and T4, they're normal. But her free T3 and other markers, they're tested on this more advanced test. So the free T3 is actually below optimal. And that's enough to cause weight loss resistance, fatigue, cravings, and much more. Now let's look at her inflammatory markers. Several of these are elevated. And inflammation is so disruptive to hormones and weight management. And you guys, her doctor told her that everything was normal. She was eating healthy foods and she was exercising more than most. And what she was doing was she was trying to increase her calorie deficit or burn more calories than she consumed. And the problem with this is that no matter how little she ate or how much she exercised, those actions would not correct her hormone imbalances, the blood sugar imbalance, or the inflammation, no matter how hard she worked. Her fat wasn't budging because her hormones were telling her body to hold on to fat. And not only that, but the calorie deficit was telling her brain that there was a famine, a lack of food available. And that's called the famine response. And the famine response made her body down-regulate fat burning. So when Rebecca went through the Nourish method, she experienced steady weight loss and she looks and feels amazing. Now imagine you get your dream body. Imagine the feeling that achieving that would ignite. Imagine having the self-confidence. What else would you be able to achieve with that? How would that impact your social life, your relationships? Imagine feeling sexy with and without your clothes. Is this what you'd love to achieve without giving up your favorite foods, following fatty diets, feeling hungry all the time, or having to count calories? If so, you're in the right place. So let's start going through 3 steps to stop dieting and start seeing results. So the first step is to stop relying on willpower for success. Now, I want to say something that I consider to be a major truth. It was definitely the truth in my case, and it is for many of my clients. What you know about dieting, totally wrong. Your cravings and impulses for unhealthy foods are not emotional, they're physiological. And until we understand what's going on in our bodies when we eat specific foods, we're setting ourselves up to fail over and over again. And I don't know about you, but I find that really frustrating. It feels like everything that you've done has been so wasted. And yet the truth of it is that it's so much easier than the restrictions or the supplements that are constantly thrown at us. So I'm going to cover some basic food science so that I can properly explain this step and the other 2 steps. So fat, protein, and carbohydrates are what we call macronutrients or macros. So things like olive oil, coconut oil, butter, lard, animal fat, these are all fats. Proteins include things like meat, fish, eggs, pulses. Carbohydrate foods include pasta, potato, bread, rice, couscous, and those types of starchy foods. And fruits and vegetables are also carbohydrates. It's also really important to note that sugar is a carbohydrate too. So when we eat carbohydrates, so bread, pasta, sugar, they're digested down into glucose molecules, which is essentially sugar. And when this enters your bloodstream, the hormone insulin is released. Insulin is your fat storage hormone. So to simplify what I just said, having more carbohydrate foods than we need, so bread, pasta, sugar, they can put you into fat storage mode because they affect your hormones, specifically the hormone insulin. So that's carbs, but what about fat and protein? Well, fat barely triggers insulin release and therefore doesn't really trigger fat storage. Protein doesn't either unless you have really high amounts of it. So eating fats and proteins typically does not put you into fat storage. And the bit that people struggle with is how fat is gram for gram higher in calories than carbs, and yet it's carbs that put you into fat storage mode, not fat. So this means that those healthy, low-calorie snack packs are always based on carb-rich foods and are low in fat, and so are really not helpful. And as well as all of this, when your blood sugars are high because you've eaten something low calorie and therefore high in carbs, when insulin is released to store that sugar away as fat, your blood sugar crashes. Now, I know that this stuff can feel complicated, so let me make it super simple. When you eat more carbohydrates than you need, they can affect your hormones in such a way that you go into fat storage mode. And at the same time, your blood sugar crashes. Now, when blood sugars crash, your body's crisis response sets in. All your body needs is sugar to remedy the blood sugar crash. So your super clever brain gives you cravings to make you eat sugar or carbohydrates. And overpowering this drive for sugar is nigh on impossible because you're working against your physiology. You need to completely eradicate the whole willpower myth. And you need to understand that it's not willpower. It's the underlying blood sugar and inflammatory issues. Willpower will never ever win against inflammation and unbalanced blood sugars. And that means that traditional dieting is setting you up to fail because traditional dieting usually makes blood sugar imbalance worse. So instead of using willpower to resist the irresistible, let's balance blood sugars and hormones and reduce inflammation instead. That's going to help to prevent those cravings and those compulsions. I want to introduce you to Suman, who's quite a good example of this type of imbalance. So Suman had been struggling with persistent cravings, and despite generally eating healthily, she just couldn't resist the crisps and chocolate in the evening. And the problem was the way that she'd been eating was leaving her underfed and undernourished. So her body was crying out for more food. And because her blood sugars were imbalanced due to meals that weren't sustaining her properly, her blood sugars were crashing too. And that meant that whilst her willpower could keep her on track during the day, by the evening, she just didn't have any resolve left to resist the cravings. Once Suman started eating more and made sure that her meals were properly balanced, she was able to do more than resist the cravings. She got rid of them. And now she can eat chocolate and crisps when she chooses to, rather than feeling a compulsion to every night. So step 2 is to flip the switch over to fat burning mode by changing up the hormones in charge. I've alluded over and over to fat being stored or released according to hormones, so let's explain this a little bit further. I'm going to give you an as simplified explanation as I can. There are so many factors and hormones that work together with fat storage or release, but we're going to focus on the 2 main hormonal players to keep it simple. Let's first talk a little bit about how fat actually works. So fat evolved as a way for us to survive periods of famine, okay? Basically, when we evolved, we were genuinely in a situation where food was available all of the time, or we were in a situation when no food was available. And because our bodies are smart and adaptive, they figured out a way to take energy from food when it was readily available and store it away for when it wasn't. And the solution was fat cells. Your body uses fat cells as storage lockers to put away extra energy. So you can literally think of fat as like leftovers pushed to the back of the fridge. Hopefully that's quite an easy analogy. So in order to pack away the leftovers, your body relies on hormones calling the shots. And in order to use the leftovers, a different set of hormones comes in and makes that happen. And insulin is a power hormone. It's released from the pancreas in response to sugar entering the blood, and it moves the sugar or the glucose from the blood to the cells to use for energy. And insulin tells the liver to store excess sugar. And when these sugar stores max out, it tells the liver to convert excess sugar to fat so that the body can store it for later use. Now, glucagon is the other power player. Glucagon acts directly opposite to insulin, and it's responsible for breaking down stored fat and carbohydrates and using them for energy. Glucagon and insulin are counterparts, which means they're like opposites. So when insulin's high, glucagon is low, and vice versa. So this is huge. The type of food you eat directly impacts whether insulin or glucagon is high. The type of food you eat is directly responsible for either building up those fat stores or helping to empty them. This is a big revelation, right? It's like calories are not the be all and end all. Calories have no impact on these hormones. Isn't that great to know? Don't you just find this mind-blowing after all those years of counting calories and only reading the calorie component of the label? So let's look at a few examples. This first one is unrelated to fat loss, but it's actually a really good illustration of the point. So kale, that's healthy, right? It's a superfood. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But what about for someone who has digestive problems, bloating, IBS, that type of thing? Well, for that person, kale could be actually pretty unhealthy because it's so rough. It actually irritates the intestine and causes a flare-up for a lot of people. So yes, kale is healthy. It has all these vitamins and minerals, fiber, but it's not healthy for someone who has digestive problems. Make sense? So let's bring it back here. Porridge, that's healthy, right? Steel cut oats, lots of B vitamins, fiber, sure. But is porridge great for fat loss? Well, it's mainly carbs. There's no fat, leading to blood sugar instability and even potentially inflammation because grains can be super irritating. So in this case, I'd say no. So it's a healthy food, but not ideal for the current goal. That doesn't mean that you can never eat it again, but we need to be eating smarter. And you need to use this lens to look at all of the healthy foods that you've been eating, thinking that they support fat loss. And you also need to look through this lens at the quote unquote unhealthy foods that you've been avoiding. Make sense? So here's Abby's story. I spoke with Abby before she joined the Nourish Method, and she'd been stuck in a cycle that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. She'd been trying to eat better and do more exercise. She'd lose weight at first, but then the results would slow down. The cravings would become overwhelming, and she'd decide that all the misery and the restriction, it just wasn't worth the lack of results, and she'd give up. Then a few weeks later, she'd G herself up again and start the cycle all over again. And whenever I talk to someone like Abby, someone who's been stuck in this cycle, I can sense the frustration coming off of them, how frustrated they are with themselves, and how this never-ending cycle really results in food dominating their every thought, and it really damages their relationship with food as well. So for Abby, we focused heavily on gut health and stress. These weren't things that seemed obvious to her. You know, as far as she was concerned, everything was okay in those departments. But when we ran tests and we analysed her symptoms, we looked at her lifestyle, it was clear that stress was taking its toll and that her gut health was not optimal. Once we started working on managing the stress better and also supporting her body through the stress, as well as optimizing her gut health, the cravings went away and the progress improved dramatically. And by the end of the 4 months, Abby had lost nearly 2 stone, and she felt so confident that she was going to be able to keep going. And Abby attributes her success not only to addressing these real underlying imbalances, but also to having a supportive community and the professional support through those ups and downs. Okay, so this is a really important slide that I've popped in here, so listen up. It's so important to understand, and I've crammed in quite a lot. If you follow me on Facebook or you read my emails, then you'll probably know that I talk a lot about other types of hormones and imbalances, you know, things like gut bacteria. And what I've walked you through so far today is the mechanism through which fat is burned or stored. And we now know that when blood sugars become elevated, we go into fat storage. And I've just talked you through how the types of foods you eat are directly responsible for either building up those fat stores or breaking them down. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I need to go low carb. It's unfortunately not as simple as that. On this slide are some very common imbalances that can cause weight gain and cravings and fatigue, and they do that partly through causing high blood sugars and therefore fat storage. And eating low carb won't address these problems, and in some cases can actually exacerbate them. So that's why it's so important to take an individualized approach based on your particular imbalances and needs. And this isn't an exhaustive list either. So let's start at the top, gut bacteria. So your gut bacteria controls many things, and research has shown that they can determine how much glucose you absorb from the foods you eat. So the exact same meal could have a very different impact on different people because of this. And your gut bacteria can also impact your metabolism, your hormones, and your cravings. So we need to balance the gut bacteria. Then we have anxiety and stress. So when you're stressed or under pressure, your stress hormone cortisol will become elevated. And interestingly, when there's a famine or when food is scarce, cortisol is higher then too. And this is a life-saving response when there's a famine, because cortisol actually liberates glucose from your muscle stores so that you can make energy. But when you're stressed and there's not a famine, the same response occurs. But you don't need that energy because your blood sugars are already high, or maybe normal. And because your body is smart and adaptive, it brings those blood sugars down by storing it as fat around your middle. And because sleep deprivation is also a type of stress, the same thing happens here too, as well as your hunger hormones going out of whack, which is what happens when we don't get enough sleep. A similar thing happens when we have too many stimulants, because stimulants, for example, caffeine, they give you an energy boost by stimulating the production of stress hormones, which leads to high blood sugars and fat storage. Then we have imbalanced macros. We've already touched on this, but essentially too many carbs, not enough protein, fats, and fiber is a recipe for elevated blood sugars and fat storage. And after you have a blood sugar high, your blood sugars crash. And this is what we call the blood sugar roller coaster. This is what we've been talking about so far, really, so we won't go into that again now. Then we have cholesterol medication. This is just one example of this type of thing, but cholesterol meds increase blood sugars. Now, I'm not telling you to stop your cholesterol medication. Please don't do that. But this is something that I work on with my clients, controlling their cholesterol with food and lifestyle changes where possible so that you don't need those meds. And then finally, we have underactive thyroid. Those with underactive thyroid have higher blood sugars and therefore more insulin and more fat storage. And it's a double whammy, because at the same time as this increased fat storage, you actually have fewer calories burnt because your metabolism is more sluggish when your thyroid is underactive. So it's the both ends of the problem. So again, we need to balance the hormones, and in this case, it's the thyroid hormones, in order to balance the blood sugars and bring down insulin. So this is why no diet will get you the results you want. To get you burning fat and keeping it off, we have got to get your sex hormones, stress hormones, thyroid hormones, blood sugars, and gut bacteria, inflammation, all of these things, we've got to get them balanced. Food is the foundation, but alone it won't be enough. And that's why I created the Nourish Method. So step 3 is to stop sabotaging ourselves by making the biggest mistake when it comes to fat loss. Stop falling for the latest or even the oldest restrictive diets. I'm going to tell you something. Weight loss on these diets is almost always due to calorie restriction. And calorie restriction is dangerous because your body can't keep up forever. So eventually it has to end, which is exactly what was happening for the various examples we've been through today. And also, when you restrict your calories, your metabolism follows suit and it declines over time. And when you start eating a regular amount of food again, your metabolism doesn't just come back up. And this is why the rebound weight gain effect is so huge. So let's talk a bit about the most popular diets and why they may not be working for you. I'm assuming if you're watching this training, then you've experienced at least one of these, maybe all of them. So let's start with the Weight Watchers type diets, where you track your food according to a points system. This is basically the first stop for most of us. It seems pretty simple, it's fairly inexpensive, and we all know someone who's lost a bunch of weight on Weight Watchers, right? Well, I hate to break it to you, but they just changed the word calories for points. All Weight Watchers is calorie restriction. And the problem with that is that you're focusing on the part of the weight loss equation, which has the smallest effect. And it also means that as soon as you stop counting points, you're totally lost because you haven't actually changed what you eat. You've just restricted it down to less than you actually need. So let's run through an actual scenario, shall we? Let's say that you need to lose some weight and you're currently eating 2,000 calories a day and maintaining your current weight. That means that if you decrease your intake to 1,500 calories a day, you're going to have fewer calories coming in than you're burning and you'll lose weight, right? Well, yes, at first you may lose a few pounds, you may not. But here's the thing. Like I keep saying, your body is super smart and super adaptive. Its goal is to keep you alive, and less calories in than out means eventual starvation. So your body actually adjusts the amount of energy you use on daily activities, so your metabolism. And so now you're only burning 1,500 calories a day. So you stop losing weight. So you go ahead and you eat less. Now you're eating 1,200 calories a day. Same thing, and so on and so forth. Metabolic downregulation is very real, and it also takes a while to bounce back from what we know. And we also can't keep it up indefinitely, and eventually we will go back to eating those 2,000 calories. And the brutal part is that now you've trained your body to eat less. You're only burning 1,200 calories a day. So on the exact same amount of food that you started out eating and maintaining, now you're eating and gaining, right? So that in a nutshell is why calorie restriction just doesn't work in the long term. And now that we know that, we can zip through these next two. So low carb diets, we've all tried low carb, Atkins, keto and whatnot. And sure, you'll lose weight at first, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the same issue. If you remove carbohydrates without properly balancing your other macronutrients and correcting the underlying imbalances, you're just restricting calories, just like in Weight Watchers, and you're going to end up with metabolic downregulation or crazy cravings and binging on carbs. Cue the rebound weight gain. And then lastly, and there's so many that we could go through and we could break down, but I think you're probably getting it. The last one is the eat less and exercise more approach. This one is probably the worst offender, because in this one, not only are you down regulating because you're taking in less energy than you need consistently, but in this case, you're actually causing muscle damage and then not providing your body with the raw materials to repair those muscles. And this results in less lean muscle in your body, which is a huge problem because lean muscle is metabolically active. And that means that when you're just hanging out, existing, the muscles in your body are constantly burning calories. So if you have less muscle, then once again, you're burning less energy and again, reducing your metabolism. Can you see why this is such a huge problem? So now that you have this key information, you can assess pretty much any plan out there and see if it's actually just calorie restriction in disguise. And if it is, stay far, far away. So this is Karen, and she was really struggling to lose weight, and she'd been struggling for a while. She had tried the usual diets, Weight Watchers, Slimming World, etc., and she just couldn't maintain them for more than a couple of weeks. Karen was really clear on the fact that she needed help. She couldn't lose weight on her own because she kept giving up. And Karen said that one of her main challenges was that it was a state of mind, really. She'd actually given up on ever losing weight, but when COVID showed up, it scared her, and she decided that she needed to do something. And she loved the fact that we were going to do testing to find out what was going on in her body. So for Karen, the main issues were high cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and higher than optimal HbA1c, which is your average blood sugars over a 6 to 8 week period. So even though the HbA1c isn't highlighted in red, it should actually be in the low 30s. And at this level, her blood sugar regulation is poor and she's spending way too much time in fat storage mode. So for Karen, we made these things our priority, as well as supporting hormone balance, because stress is so disruptive to sex hormones, and she had various hormonal symptoms. So Karen lost 16.5 inches by around 3 months into the program. And what I think is really great actually is that when I had a chat with her at the end of the program, which was 4 months, she hadn't measured to check on her progress. That's how good she was feeling mentally. And she had much more energy and she found it easier to be active. She felt more positive despite being furloughed. And she said that she felt more emotionally resilient. She had much more confidence to the point that she felt confident enough to go and get a new job. And she mentioned stronger nails, better skin, being less itchy, and no more swollen ankles, which is always a bonus. And these are just the highlights from Karen's story, and the whole interview is over on my website. So let's do a review of the 3 steps that we've just been over. Step 1 was to stop relying on willpower. You've learned that it's not willpower that determines your success, and you've discovered that you need to balance the blood sugar to get rid of the cravings and start with fat loss. Step 2 was to stop counting calories. It's hormones, not calories, that really drive fat storage. And you now understand that you need to flip the metabolic switch to fat burning mode by using the right macros. And you need to create balanced meals so that blood sugar is stable and the fat burning hormones are in the driver's seat. And then step 3 was to focus on abundance. Stop falling for calorie counting in disguise. So you showed up today because you want to feel amazing when you look in the mirror without having to give up your favorite foods. You want a simpler way to achieve your happy weight without having to say goodbye to your social life. You want to stop getting frustrated, hungry, deprived, and like food is the enemy. And you want to feel healthy and rediscover your zest for life. And you want to shift the stubborn weight so that you can feel sexy and confident and happy. And at the beginning of this training, I made you a promise, and I promised to show you the simplest way to get the body you want and deserve. And here's the thing that I want you to remember. Everything that I've shared with you today isn't some random theory or some idea that I think might work for you. It's, worked for my clients who all started from a similar spot to what you're in right now. And they aren't special. We all have busy lives, families, cake in the office. And if they can do it, then I am so confident that you can do it too. You already know that you can achieve your dream body as long as you have support and a plan to follow. So you're already halfway there. And now you have a choice. You can continue to do what you're doing, for example, yo-yoing, hoping that it works, even though it hasn't done so far. Or you can choose a simpler path and use the Nourish method that comes with the proven system and accountability so that you can get to your goals and stay there. The choice is yours. And throughout the webcast, you've heard me mention the Nourish method, and this is how I can help you to achieve lasting weight loss. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes to share how I can best help you. My job is to give you the right information so that you can achieve your happy weight without the struggle. And then I'll give you that free gift that I mentioned at the beginning of the training, and then we'll move on to some frequently asked questions. So I'm so pleased to be sharing this opportunity with you, because the best way that we can help you is by supporting you directly. We have time allocated in our schedule so that we can speak with you personally about how we can support you to apply what we've talked about today so that you can get seeing real results within the next few months. And we do that with a call called the Weight Loss Breakthrough Call. And the best part is that during this call, you're going to gain so much confidence because you're going to be able to see how this framework works. And while I'm certainly not the only one in the weight loss field, there are loads of people doing it, which is great. I'm the best at working with women over 35 who want to shift the fat without feeling hungry and miserable. And I transform my clients' lives. So here's what to do next. Scroll to the bottom of this page where you should be able to see our scheduler, which will be open with the next available appointments. This is what it looks like. The dates are across the top, and then you simply choose the time that works for you. Click confirm, pop in your name, your number, answer a couple of questions, and that's it. Easy peasy. So make sure you book for a time when you're going to be undisturbed and you're going to be able to focus. So you've seen how to schedule your call, and I want to cover a couple of specifics. So on the call, we're going to help you to get clarity on what you need to start seeing results. So we're going to get clear on your specific goal and why you want it, any obstacles or challenges that would derail your success, how to handle social situations or pressure, any self-sabotage that might be happening. And this way, by the time the call is over, you're going to leave with helpful strategies that propel your success. Does that sound good? And here's the important thing to know. The call is completely free. And you might be thinking, okay, there must be a catch to this. You've just told me all the ways that you're going to help me, so why is the call free? Well, first of all, the call is free because this is my mission in life. It's literally my life's work to support frustrated dieters to get their dream bodies in a way that doesn't involve restriction and having to give up your favorite foods. I have a core value in my business where I offer value first. And I start off just by helping you with this webinar and with the call. And I know that we can help you to overcome some of the barriers that have been stopping you from shifting the fat without the rebound weight gain. And second, I know that there are many of you listening that want a more personalized guidance and support. And I know that, if you're someone who needs that in order to succeed, then great. We will discuss that and discuss what the next steps are on the call to determine if you're a good fit for the Nourish method. And if not, that's completely okay. You're still going to leave the call with so much clarity and value and confidence. There is one catch though. If you are looking for a quick fix or a magic pill, so to speak, a way to lose weight where you don't care if it supports the health of your hormones, your mind, your body, then this call isn't for you. And the call is also not for you if you blame others and you don't take personal responsibility for your success. If you're looking for a quick fix and you're not interested in health and well-being, if you're not patient with yourself, if you're not committed to getting slim and confident, if you're not open-minded to a new way of doing things. I know that this system works. I've shown you examples throughout this training of some of my clients who have had success, and there is a reason that they've achieved significant and lasting weight loss. My clients were committed to their goals. I want success so bad for my clients and for you, but I can't be the only one putting in the effort. And I 100% believe and know that when you commit to your goals using this system, then you will achieve success. So the first step is to schedule a weight loss breakthrough call. And if you're someone who wants to lose weight for good and is ready to commit, then this call is for you. And the call is also for you if you're ready to stop doing all of the things that don't work or the things that you think you should be doing and focus on a proven system that does work. If you know that the road to success isn't straight, it's windy, but you're committed. If you want to learn about nutrition, hormone balance, blood sugar balance, and a healthy mindset, if you're coachable and you ask for support and guidance. If you're tired of trying things that don't work and you're done with getting short-term results. If this is you, if you're someone who wants the support and the strategy so that you can sidestep all those obstacles that used to hold you back, then make sure you schedule your call right now because spots are limited. So even if you've tried calorie counting, low carb, personal trainers, and it hasn't worked, or even if you don't have time or you don't have any support at home, this works. It works because it's based on correcting the underlying drivers of fat storage and includes the support and the accountability that traditional methods don't. There are nuances that only an expert can help you with because there are many other factors involved that traditional programs don't cover. For example, think about your mindset, your environment, your social settings. We don't exist in a vacuum. So head over to the online scheduler and secure your weight loss breakthrough call right now, because there is a big difference between trying to figure this out on your own and working with an expert who has a track record of success. Okay, so thank you so much for attending this live training today. As promised, here is the 6 simple rules that you get as my gift to you for committing to your dream body. So any second now, a link should appear below this video. If you've fast forwarded the video, then it won't appear just yet because it's timed to appear at this point in the video. So you can go ahead and download that by just clicking the link. And I'm going to go through a few frequently asked questions. So I'm frequently asked, can you help if I take medication, if I'm diabetic, and various other ifs and buts? So I'll be really clear on this. If you take medication, yes, we are specially trained to work with those on multiple medications. We would always check anything that we recommended to ensure that it was safe to take alongside your medication. If you are diabetic or pre-diabetic, yes, we can definitely help. We've had specialist training in diabetes prevention and management, and also reversal of type 2 diabetes. Another question we often get is, can you help if I have chronic kidney disease? So if you have chronic kidney disease or CKD, then you have very specific dietary requirements and you should work with a dietitian who specializes in that. If you have an active eating disorder, then you need to work with a counsellor. Whilst we do help women with their mindsets and their relationship with food, you need more specialist support. And if you are undergoing any chemotherapy or radiotherapy, then now is not the right time for us to work together. Afterwards, we can absolutely help. And even if you're taking an aromatase inhibitor like tamoxifen, that's fine. We're used to that. We can very much help. If you were pregnant, again, now is not the time for us to work with you, but certainly afterwards, we'll be more than happy to help. So another question that we often get is, can you help men too? And obviously we get this question because many of the women that we work with have partners who may want to lose weight as well. So the answer is that whether or not your partner wants to lose weight, this is very much adaptable to fit in with your partner, with your family. So it's a resounding yes, it does work for men as well. This is Brian, someone who we did work with directly a few years back. And as you can see, he shrunk quite considerably. This is his story. I won't read through it in great detail, but to give you an overview, he was really trying to lose weight the old-fashioned way, eating less and calorie restriction, but he plateaued and he was left feeling really drained and tired and generally feeling unhealthy. And as a result of joining the Nourish method, not only did he manage to exceed his weight loss goal, but he also reversed his type 2 diabetes. And for Brian, this changed his life, and it changed his future from one of disease and medications to one of health and vibrancy and activity and joy. So this is absolutely possible for you too. I know Brian's a man, but we see these types of results across the board. So whether you have 10 pounds to lose or 10 stone to lose, it is possible for you as long as you take action. The best time to start was yesterday. So if you haven't already, go ahead and book your weight loss breakthrough call. Scroll down to the bottom of this page, which is where you'll be able to book your appointment. Any trouble doing that, or if that calendar isn't working for some reason, just send me an email, let me know, reply to any of the emails that I've sent you, and you'll get me, and then I'll help you to book in your call. So Ultimately, the Nourish Method is an individualized program. So whatever question you have, the answer is likely to be one that suits you, because we're all about adapting to your specific needs. This is about us finding the approach that works best for you, rather than it being a one size fits all. But we've done it, everyone. We've come to the end. So thank you so much for coming along today. As I said before, it is my mission, it is my purpose on this planet to save frustrated dieters from having to experience what I did with my clients, and really give them a simpler way to achieve lasting fat loss. So if you've booked a call, then this call is all about us being of service to you. And if we agree that you're a good fit for the Nourish Method, then we can discuss what that looks like. But either way, you're going to get so much out of our time together, and we're really looking forward to talking with you. So thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll look forward to speaking with you very soon. Bye.